When we talk about the richest countries, we would assume that the wealthiest nations are the ones with the largest GDP, such as the United States, China, Japan, and Germany. With such giants, how is it likely for nations that are but specks on the world map to compete? Well, you may be surprised to know that some of the wealthiest nations are also the smallest. Yup, small but extremely rich countries often entice foreign investment and employment by having efficient financial and tax regimes. The gross domestic product, or GDP, measures all the goods and services produced in a nation. However, dividing the output by the number of full-time residents is a better measure of how rich or poor one country's population is in comparison to another. Therefore, some countries' economies are disproportionately large compared to other small populations, explaining why rich often equals small. We can, however, gain a more accurate picture of a nation's average standard of living by taking inflation into account as well as the price of local goods and services. The calculated figure is called Purchasing Power Parity, or PPP, a measure of international dollars that allows comparisons between countries. Join us as we look at the 5 richest countries in the world by purchasing power parity, or PPP. But before anything else, don't miss out on any video updates. Make sure to subscribe. Starting off our list is number 5, Switzerland. Population 8,675,923. GDP per capita, or PPP, is $78,112. Swiss Army knives, white chocolate, and bobsleighs. The computer mouse, immersion blender, Velcro, and LSD. Among these are just a few of the many products from one of the healthiest, happiest nations in the world, where the German, French, and Italians have flourished together peacefully for over 800 years. Despite the Swiss franc's extreme value, high conversion rate to other currencies, and Switzerland's high cost of living, people flock to the country for business or tourism. Swiss investors in particular seek a country with a strong economy and a fixed exchange rate that can provide a haven for highly profitable projects. The low tax rates in Switzerland make it a popular location for expanding international companies. Known for their innovative methods, the Swiss transform natural resources into quality products such as chocolate, cheese, jewelry, home decor, and furniture. Gems and precious metals, followed by pharmaceuticals and machinery, contribute most to the GDP. Mountains, charming cities, and a luxurious lifestyle draw millions of tourists each year. Switzerland has no capital gains tax, a low value-added tax of 7.7% on its goods, and lower income taxes than most other countries. The Swiss also prefer local products, pay for garbage disposal, and pay for their inexcusably expensive water bottles. The Swiss economy, however, was not spared from the effects of COVID-19. Production fell 2.5% in 2020. Nevertheless, things could have been worse, especially if we consider the toll it took on Italy, Spain, France, and Germany, with a fall in production of 8.8%, 10.8%, 7.9%, and 4.5% respectively. To what do we owe the difference? According to the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, this is credited to a swift and sustainable policy response through emergency spending and containment measures. However, this can also largely be credited to the makeup of the Swiss economy itself, with its solid public and household finances, competitive export industries, and low dependency on contact-intensive sectors. Number 4, Qatar. Population 2,899,617. GDP per capita, or PPP, is $100,037. Despite the recent recovery, oil prices have suffered a steady and sometimes dramatic decline since mid-2010. This is not only due to the supply and demand crisis of last year, but stems deeper. In 2014, Qatar's per capita GDP was over $143,222. A year later, it was just $97,846, and to this day, it is barely above that figure. Qatar saw its most revolutionary moment in 1939 when it found oil and natural gas. It began producing 46,500 barrels of oil per day and became one of the world's largest oil exporters globally. Its GDP has grown exponentially from $30 billion to over $200 billion after 15 years and 14 natural gas plants. The world's largest gas reserve is in Qatar at nearly 900 trillion cubic feet, earning 60% of the country's GDP. Khalifa bin Hamad, after becoming independent in 1971, deposed his father and cut the royal family's allowances to increase spending on social programs, housing, health, education, and pensions. Investments in foreign brands, banks, and property in London, as well as the Paris Saint-Germain soccer team, generate significant returns for the country. Only 12% of the residents are Qatari nationals. In the initial months of the pandemic, the country, similarly to many other Gulf states, saw COVID-19 spreading especially among low-income migrant workers living in crowded quarters at a furious speed. Quarantines, curfews, and lockdowns have been imposed more than once, yet Qatar suffered one of the highest rates of positive cases in the region. The economy, however, is showing some resilience. It contracted by a relatively modest 3.5% in 2020 and grew roughly 2% in 2021 and is now projected to rebound amid an increase in gas production and investment in preparation for the 2022 World Cup. Number 3. Ireland. Population 4,953,494. GDP per capita, or PPP, is $111,360. Ireland seemed invincible until recently. As Europe faced all manners of uncertainties, Brexit, trade tensions with the US, and refugee and migrant crises to name a few, the Irish economy was humming along. The Irish economy grew by over 4.9% in 2019, the fastest on the continent, when the Eurozone grew by only 1.5%. That's what one would expect, wouldn't it? However, Ireland defied all expectations once again. Its GDP grew by 5.8% in 2020 and by a whopping 13% in 2021, according to the IMF. Following tough reforms like cutting public sector wages and restructuring its banking industry, the island nation saw its per capita GDP almost double in just a few years after recovering its fiscal health from the 2008 crisis. Irish corporate tax havens are among the largest in the world. Due to low corporate taxes, a large number of multinational companies relocate and grow their businesses in Ireland. The high standard of living contributes to the GDP. Even with the high wages, the income per capita has grown much slower than the collective GDP. Despite this, the country's stability and economic growth continue due to tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing. Ireland's other main exports consist of metals and food products, including brewing, computers, parts and software, and textiles. Ireland is also largely dependent on its tertiary industry, which includes call centers, legal services, accounting, customer service, stockbroking, and catering. Number 2. Singapore. Population 5,866,407. GDP per capita, or PPP, is $107,677. Asia's tiger, Singapore, finished second. The term tiger economy refers to a small, high-performing economy that has experienced rapid development. Singapore offers affluent tax-free dividends and capital gains to its residents, in addition to urban amenities. Singapore has been the second richest nation in the world, despite having no natural resources to build its economy upon. Its economy is driven by global financial service firms. The country's main exports are electronics, biotechnology, and chemicals, while manufacturing, services, and transportation engineering pay its citizens well. Singapore attracts millions of tourists every year with its high-end infrastructure and expanding tourism sector. Furthermore, the government created a very investor-friendly economic environment with free trade, open markets, and attractive low tax rates highly sought after by international firms and business travelers. Before we reveal our number 1 wealthiest country, let's first take a look at some of the runners-up who nearly made the list. United Arab Emirates. GDP is at $69,957.6. Norway at $67,978.7. And United States, $65,279.5. And our wealthiest country is Luxembourg. Population 629,191. GDP per capita, or PPP, is $126,569. Known only for its castles, stunning countryside, cultural festivals, and gastronomy, but Luxembourg is also known for its high income levels, low unemployment rate, and low inflation rate at only 1.1%. Luxembourg is regarded as the richest country in the world. The advanced infrastructure and high labor value attract investment and replication from its big outside firms. Having one of the world's most educated labor forces and import-export economy, Luxembourg prospers today. The country also has a small but thriving agricultural industry. But if you think Luxembourg was spared from the coronavirus outbreak, then you'd be wrong. The pandemic forced several businesses to close and lay off thousands of workers. Even so, Luxembourg has managed to weather the pandemic in 2020 better than most of its European neighbors due to effective testing and contact tracing measures. Thus, propelled by the vaccine rollout, the GDP of the Grand Duchy recovered by 5.5% in 2021 from negative 1.3% in 2020. Since 2014, the country's GDP per capita has surpassed $100,000. Even COVID-19 couldn't alter this. There you have it, folks, the 5 richest countries on the planet. Would you rather be poor in a rich country or rich in a poor country? Well, if you choose to reside in one of these rich countries, which would you prefer? Comment below and let us know what you think. For more videos, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. That's it for now. Thanks for watching the video and see you next time.